screwball terrace, which is a joke because it didn't look like a normal house, but it was a wonderful house, and it breathed. When you walked in, there was like a little fountain, and the air sort of had the ionized, you know, you felt like you were outdoors. It was a foyer, and he had prints from Walt Disney's, you know, cartoons, the Sorcerer's Apprentice. He had some gels on the wall. They were collectible, I guess, but in my mind, he knew Walt Disney. You know, so, but he played the guitar, and he played it finger picking style, and I began to pay attention to that. But I just remember we're going to go to Uncle George. He was my great uncle. We're going to go to Uncle George's, and that guitar in my mind was like this gem just sitting there on this little counter. And I have the guitar, and I have his accordion. I got it when he passed on. My uncle, is there anything you want or whatever? And I said, do you still have the instruments there? And that little guitar that I thought was the world's most incredible instrument is a modest guitar from Mexico called the Monterey with nylon strings. But to me, it was the most magic thing in the world. So I went from the ukulele, it was like only 2 more strings, I can handle this, you know. So I began to absorb that. And so the end of that segment would be when I was about 12, and we were staying with again on Cape Cod with my granddad, who was a very well, one time I found him, I was climbing around the rocks close to the ocean. There was a lot of big boulders, and I came upon him all of a sudden, and he was sitting there with a pair of binoculars in an immaculate white shirt and tweed jacket and a necktie and gray flannel pants, contemplating the ocean and watching the ships. It was a side of him I never saw, and I was taught to be afraid of him. You know, he said, "Don't disturb Grandpa," and he was like, "Well, sit down," you know. And turned out he played the ukulele, and so the first song I heard Uncle Jimmy play those songs, and then before I heard Little Richard sing "Wom Bomble Doo Bomble Long Bamboo." I mean, like maybe 6 months before, I heard my granddad sing, "Oh, a grasshopper sat on a railroad track, singing Polly Wolly Doodle all the day, picking his teeth with a carpet tack, singing Polly Wolly Doodle all the day. Fare thee well, fare thee well, fare thee well, my fairy fay. I'm going to Louisiana for to see my Susiana, singing Polly Wolly Doodle all the day." And I'm sort of free associating. There was a guy on TV, when the TV had just started to come in, and one of the first musical shows was Spike Jones, who was, I don't know what you call it, a musical comedy, but it was a parody of all the formalities of music. You know, with there was one guy who played the washboard and had the bang, bang, the horn, you know, but there were 2 banjo players in that band, and one was skinny and one was tall and skinny, one was short, and they blacked out their teeth, and they did all the strumming tenor banjo style. And in fact, there was a thing called the Big Top, a little kid show that came on, and it was photographed in circus tents. They were trying to sell anything they could to get people into TV, and they would show a trapeze artist, but it was always the focus on the band that was so interesting. They had bands, I saw this on TV, they had bands that were all banjos. All banjos, like 50 banjos, all wanging away, you know.
Dreams come true, right? For banjo player.
Yeah, there you go, but I'll leave it at that.
Hey, you mentioned Harvard Square. It seems
Yeah.
you were drawn to that. A lot of musicians. Somewhere along the way, you meet